Kemudian peserta hanya untuk yang beragama Kristen, dan konten informasi dalam Zoom dilindungi oleh hak cipta yang dimiliki oleh WAFM, dilarang merekam atau menggunakan konten tanpa seizin WAFM. Tanpa berpanjang lebar lagi, mungkin Ibu Linsi bisa dibuka dengan doa. Silakan Bu Linsi.
Okay, thank you. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for this time. Thank you for this gather. Father, we ask you to bless this program, everyone here in the Zoom meeting. And I ask you also, Lord, that you open the heart for Brother Murat, that he might come to the knowledge of Jesus Christ. Father, in the name of Jesus, I ask you that this program will open the eyes of the Muslims, that what they believe is a lie. What they believe is nothing but a nonsense. Father, in the name of Jesus, we ask you to prosper this meeting, this program. Whoever watching the YouTube, on Facebook, or wherever they are, we ask you, Lord, that your spirit be upon them and open their heart and bring this knowledge, Lord, as a wisdom for us and wisdom for those Muslim, that they might reach to the knowledge of Jesus Christ. Father, let this program be happen. I cover the blood of Jesus over this, and I ask you, Lord, that this will come to prosper from the beginning to the end of this program. Bless Brother Murat, and bless Sophia as the translator, and bless the moderator, Lord, and everyone in here. Father, we give it back to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amin. Okay, you may continue with that.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I just want to say first that I am an Arab, and Arabic is my main language, so people could easily trust my Arabic, and they should not really trust my English. And the topic of today is, did the Hijrah happen? And I will argue that no.
Ibu Sofi. Ibu Sofi. Hello.
Okay, I can
Hello.
continue.
Okay, I think I will translate from now.
Okay.
Perhaps something happened with Miss Sophie.
Okay.
Teman-teman, Murat sini hadir bersama kita untuk menjelaskan kenapa hijrah, apakah hijrah terjadi.
Recording in progress.
Ya, sebagai informasi bahwa Murat adalah seorang Arab, jadi dia berkelakar bercanda bahwa ya mungkin Arab saya lebih bisa dipercaya dibanding Inggris saya. Okay, you may continue.
Okay, first I want to say a shout out to the Indonesian people because they are awesome and they are watching our videos. So a lot of respect to that. Also, I would love to try your Indonesian food. I found this satay.
Yes!
I love satay too, brother.
Come to Florida, brother.
And I thought that I must try it. So tell people about it. Maybe they can make me a dish.
Oke, saya terjemahkan dulu.
I'm starting to love
Sophia.
biryani rice also. I love Middle East food. Ya, Brother Murat mengatakan dia mencintai orang-orang Indonesia dan banyak sekali orang-orang Indonesia yang menonton, dan Brother Murat sangat suka makan Indonesia, satay.
Marhaba ya Habibi.
What kind of satay, brother? What kind of satay? Chicken satay or
pig?
No, meat.
Goat.
Meat much better.
Goat.
Okay.
Kali ini apakah hijrah itu terjadi?
Okay, so what is the hijrah? And I found just the standard story. So this is straight of Wikipedia. And you can find here that the word hijrah it means that the Prophet Muhammad went from Mecca to Medina in the year 622.
Ya, kalau kita melihat apa itu hijrah, teman-teman, ini adalah narasi standar ya yang dimiliki oleh orang-orang Muslim. Kalau kita lihat di Wikipedia, apa itu hijrah? Hijrah artinya pindah atau migrasi dari Mekah ke Medina di tahun 622 Masehi.
It is very important to know here that it was called the Hijri calendar. So the calendar of the Hijrah, which was in 622.
Jadi ini dia memiliki kalender hijrah ya. Kalendernya adalah tanggal 16 Juli tahun 622.
Here, still in Wikipedia, it says that Prophet Muhammad, when he got out of Mecca, it was because he was being persecuted by the Meccans. So as you can see here, he was persecuted by the Meccans.
Ya, jadi di Wikipedia masih dikatakan di sini kenapa Muhammad itu hijrah atau pindah dari Mekah ke Medina. Karena pada waktu itu terjadi penganiayaan atau persekusi agama oleh
Hello?
Oke. Ya, oke, saya
Oke.
lanjutkan. Karena terjadi, Sofi sudah masuk kayaknya ya.
Oke, go on brother, go on. Sinyalku kayaknya go on.
Oke, kalau sudah sinyal bagus mungkin bisa lanjut ya sama Bu Sofi. Nanti balik lagi. Oke, saya lanjutkan sedikit. Jadi terputus dari Sofi bahwa Muhammad itu kena persekusi agama oleh penduduk di Mekah.
So Muhammad had to migrate because he was preaching monotheism to a pagan audience. This is what we get.
Oke, jadi Muhammad harus migrasi karena dia mengajarkan monoteisme kepada penduduk pagan.
But is it true? Did this happen?
Tapi
Yes.
Apakah benar ini terjadi?
The best way to answer this question is by looking at how the early Muslims viewed the hijrah.
Cara yang terbaik untuk menjawab pertanyaan ini adalah dengan melihat sumber-sumber awal Islam tentang hijrah.
We have to look at their coins, archaeological remains, and inscriptions.
Kita harus melihat koin-koin mereka, kemudian peninggalan arkeologi, dan juga inskripsi-inskripsinya.
The first archaeological find we have mentioning the new Islamic calendar is an inscription from the time of Muawiyah I, which is the first Umayyad Caliph.
Oke, temuan arkeologis yang pertama menyebutkan bahwa kalender Islam baru memiliki inskripsi dari zaman Muawiyah yang pertama dan juga dari Khalifah Umayyad yang pertama.
So let's look at the Muawiyah inscription, and its date is from 662 or 663. So the year 42 after Hijrah, if we can call it Hijrah.
Oke, kita bisa melihat nanti inskripsi Muawiyah yang dari tahun 662 atau 663 atau tahun 42 setelah Hijrah.
This is the inscription, and the first thing you see is that it is in Greek.
Oke, ini inskripsinya, dan kalau pemirsa memperhatikan, ini ditulis dalam bahasa Yunani.
The first thing you see in the inscription is a cross. It starts with a cross.
Hal yang pertama Anda lihat di pojok kiri atas tersebut adalah sebuah tanda salib.
Some people said this is not a cross, so I made a recolor when I found that it is a cross, and it looks like the cross of the Crusaders, which is like the four parts are equal.
Oke. Pada awalnya memang orang menyanggah bahwa itu bukan salib. Nah, kemudian saya retouch gambarnya dengan foto, dan ternyata gambar salib itu mirip seperti salib yang dipakai para pejuang Crusader, pejuang perang salib, dan setiap salib itu mempunyai sisi yang sama.
And you can clearly see here the name Muawiyah or Muawiyah. So here Abdullah Muawiyah, meaning Muawiyah I of the Umayyad Caliphate.
Oke, dan pada inskripsi itu kita bisa melihat Muawiyah, dan kemudian ada tulisan Abdullah Muawiyah, yang berarti adalah khalifah pertama.
So here if we read it, it will say that the commander Muawiyah rebuilt the hot bath and stuff. But what is important is here it says, in the year 726 of the colony, according to the Arabs, Kata Arabas, the 42nd year.
Oke, di sini kita melihat di inskripsi sini menuliskan bahwa dinasti Muawiyah ini memperbaiki gedung, kemudian pemandian umum dan seterusnya. Tapi yang terpenting adalah ditulis tersebut pada tahun 726 dari koloni menurut para orang Arab, atau dalam kurung Kata Arabas pada tahun ke-42.
So it says according to the Arabs, not Hijri or not after Hijrah. This is very critical.
Oke. Yang sangat kritis adalah menurut orang Arab tidak disebutkan tahun apakah tahun Hijriah atau setelah atau sebelum Hijrah, sama sekali tidak disebut.
Now let's look at the first coin ever to have the name Muhammad, and it was struck in 66, if we can call after Hijrah now, and or 685 AD.
Nah, sekarang kita melihat pada gambar di sebelah kanan adalah koin pertama yang koin pertama yang ada tulisan Muhammad yang dicetak pada tahun 66 setelah Hijriah atau tahun 685 Masehi.
It was struck by someone called Abdul Malik ibn Abdullah ibn Kriz under Abdullah ibn Zubair. And this is highly important because this is an official, this is the state talking, and the coins, they never get old and they are original.
Oke, ini pertama kali buat oleh Abdullah ibn Malik ibn Abdullah ibn Qais, kan di bawah mungkin pengawasan Abdullah ibn al-Zubair. Nah, sementara kita lihat ini adalah koin resmi dari state ya, dari pemerintahannya ya, dan ini sangat terjaga dengan baik dan tidak kerusakannya pun minim.
Beside the date is the phrase بعد انقضاء أمر المؤمنين in Arabic, which means literally after the believer's case has been settled.
Oke. Di sebelah di sebelah tahun pembuatannya tertulis setelah kasus-kasus para orang percaya diselesaikan.
So not after Hijrah and not Hijri. So these people, they did not know about the Hijrah. Very important.
Oke. Jadi sama sekali tidak menyinggung soal hijrah atau setelah hijrah. Ya, jadi bahkan orang-orang tersebut pun tidak tahu apa artinya hijrah itu. Nah, ini sangat penting.
So who did Ibn Ishaq model the hijrah upon? Now, if we do not have an hijrah, it means that the first biography of Muhammad, someone invented it.
Oke. Jadi sebenarnya dari siapa sih Ibn Ishaq itu membuat hijrah gitu ya? Jika hijrah tidak dikenal di tahun pertama, jika di Ibn Ishaq tidak ada sama sekali, berarti hijrah itu hanya sempalan atau buatan saja.
Muhammad was persecuted for preaching monotheism, and then he took his people out exactly like Moses with the Exodus.
Oke. Muhammad dipersekusi karena mengkhotbahkan monoteisme, kemudian dia membawa orang-orangnya keluar sama seperti Musa di dalam kitab Keluaran.
Muhammad enters Medina on a donkey exactly like Jesus entered Jerusalem.
Bahkan Muhammad masuk Medina dengan mengendarai keledai, sama seperti Yesus saat memasuki Yerusalem.
So Ibn Ishaq, he was mixing Muhammad and Moses into a super prophet.
Jadi Ibn Ishaq memadukan ya atau mencampurkan antara Musa dan Yesus, kemudian jadilah super nabi super, yaitu Muhammad itu sendiri nabi super. Ya.
So in conclusion, early Muslims never heard about the hijrah.
Kesimpulan pertama adalah Muslim mula-mula tidak pernah mendengar sama sekali tentang hijrah.
If they did, they would have had it on their coins, rock inscriptions, or parchments.
Jika mereka mengetahuinya, seharusnya mereka mempunyai tahun hijrah tersebut di dalam koin-koinnya atau inskripsi di bebatuan atau di perkamen-perkamen.
What really happened was an independent Arab state came to be, not a hijrah.
Yang sebenarnya terjadi adalah sebuah negara Arab yang independen terbentuk, bukan tentang hijrah.
They used a lunar calendar just like the Jews.
Kalender penanggalan bulan sama seperti Yahudi, karena Yahudi itu adalah sekutu mula-mula mereka.
An accurate translation of the word hijrah would be exodus, not migration or immigration.
Terjemahan yang tepat untuk hijrah seharusnya adalah keluar, ya, bukan migrasi atau imigrasi.
The name Hagar itself, it means the exiled one, like exodus, not migration.
Oke. Kata Hagar sendiri itu adalah yang seseorang yang dikeluarkan, ya, bukan hijrah.
Muhammad's hijrah is an invention during the Abbasid time or era to make him more like Moses and more like Jesus.
Hijrahnya Muhammad adalah sebuah ciptaan di zaman Abbasid, ya, untuk membuat dia seperti Musa dan Yesus.
This is all I have, and now I will just say an exclusive news to the Indonesian people.
Ya, ini adalah paparan-paparan saya dan ada berita yang menarik untuk orang-orang Indonesia.
I have a new YouTube, and you are the first to know about it public, so subscribe to it because I will make much better videos there.
Oke, saya memiliki channel baru, jadi kami minta pada para pemirsa dan juga tamu-tamu ini, silahkan untuk subscribe di channel Saint Murad.
And now, if people would like to ask questions, it would be great.
Oke, jika ada teman-teman yang memiliki pertanyaan, disilahkan. Halo?
I am there.
Lindsay,
If someone has a question, I would take questions now.
Oke. YP atau Bu Lindsay?
Saya mau tanya, kapan hijrah tertulis di dalam literatur Muslim? Yang tertua tahun berapa?
Oke. Well, what was the oldest Muslim literature stated about the hijrah year? Is there any source for it?
It is only in Ibn Ishaq, and this is what I said in the presentation. It is the first time that you find this word hijrah.
Oke, hanya ada di Ibn Ishaq. Hanya itulah sumber Islam satu-satunya yang pertama kali menyebutkan kata hijrah. Ya, mungkin ya, terima kasih.
Boleh saya tanya? Oke, saya Bani. May I ask some questions? If the hijrah is not happen, so it means that when were Muhammad alive, there is no Islamic calendar, because Islamic calendar based on the hijrah. Is that correct? My assumption. Thank you.
Oke. Ada Bapak bertanya bahwa jika hijrah itu tidak ada, ya berarti Muhammad tidak eksis sama sekali dong. Nah, bagaimana tanggapan?
Bukan tidak eksis, belum ada kalender hijrah.
Oke, belum ada kalender Islam. Ya, bagaimana
belum ada
Muhammad?
kalender Islam.
Ya, bagaimana hijrah itu bisa terjadi?
Could you tell me
Yes, Brother Murad?
again, because I don't really understand what's the question?
Hello?
Yes, could you tell me the question again?
So it means that when Muhammad was living, there is no Islamic calendar at the time, because the Islamic calendar is based on the hijrah. Is that correct?
The word hijrah, we do not find it anywhere before Ibn Ishaq. And the hijrah is supposedly the most important thing that happened in the Muslim world.
Yes.
And you don't even find any hostile evidence about it. You don't find any early Christian writings talking about it. It seems to be fictitious, just like the idea of Moses taking his people out of Egypt. So there is no evidence at all. And if someone wants evidence, you could post it here if someone has evidence of a hijrah.
Ya, sebenarnya dari awal tidak ada sama sekali kata hijrah dalam zaman Muhammad. Bahkan dari sumber-sumber non-Islam pun tidak ada sumber-sumber Kristen pun yang menyebutkan tentang hijrah. Tidak ada menyebutkan sumber-sumber apapun di luar agama Islam menyebutkan tentang hijrah. Bahkan Murad minta bahwa kalau memang ada yang bisa memberikan sumber-sumber kata hijrah itu sendiri sebelum Ibn Ishaq gitu ya. Nah, silakan paparan di sini. Ini sepertinya tantangan. It looks like a challenge, is it, Murad, to everyone who claim that they have a proof that hijrah stated before Ibn Ishaq?
No, and actually this is not absence of evidence. This is positive evidence that people used to say according to the Arabs or after the believer's case has been settled. If the hijrah happened, it would be very important and it will be the first thing on their coins.
Oh, oke. Mungkin sudah bisa terjawab Pak
Bani.
Pak Bani.
Yeah, thank you. Already clear. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Brother Murad, I want to ask you something about the hijrah.
Yes.
In the hadith, there's a lot mentions about this hijrah, but not from Makkah to Medina, but also about the story about Fatu Makkah, right?
About what?
So Fatu Makkah. Fatu Makkah, when the Prophet conquered.
Okay.
Yeah, Fatu Makkah. So what do you think about the story in the hadith about this? There's a lot of word hijrah in the hadith, but you mentioned that there is none about the word hijrah before Ibn Ishaq. What do you think about the hadiths mention this hijrah?
Yes, hadith and Ibn Ishaq, they both take from each other. This is what we have found from the evidence. I am talking about coins or archaeology or anything official that the state has minted. You don't find this anywhere. And this is very important. How come the Umayyads never talked about the hijrah ever? You see?
Oke.
Yes, okay.
Ya, jadi Ibu Sofiatul bertanya, di hadis itu banyak menyebutkan tentang hijrah dan hijrah ya. Kemudian ada hijrah Mekah ke Madinah, kemudian ada Fathul Makkah. Nah, kemudian dijawab bahwa hadis dan Ibn Ishaq itu saling melengkapi satu sama lain. Yang ditekankan di sini adalah butuh bukti-bukti arkeologis penting, ya, entah itu koin atau dokumen-dokumen resmi dari pemerintah itu yang menyebutkan kata hijrah, ya, sebelum hadis atau Ibn Ishaq itu ada.
One more question, brother.
Yes.
You mentioned about the coin that said after the case was settled. What does that mean? What kind of case is settled? What do you think? What they're talking about?
Well, this is what we have been looking deeply into, and we think that the case has been settled, meaning that there is an independent Arab state. Because if you look before, you will find that the Ghassanids and Lakhmids, they were not independent states. They were governed some by Romans and some by Persians. If you want to translate this part.
Okay, I hope I can capture all of it. Jadi Bu Sofetlo bertanya, ada statement bahwa di koin bahwa setelah semua urusan atau kasus atau permasalahan diselesaikan, kemudian dijawab bahwa justru inilah yang harusnya dicari gitu ya. Nah, temuannya adalah bahwa ini kemungkinan adalah di mana sebuah negara atau negara Arab yang selesai dibentuk karena memang pada masa itu ada daerah-daerah yang memang terpecah-pecah, ada yang sebagian dikuasai oleh Romawi dan sekitarnya seperti Ghassanid dan Lakhmid.
In 622, the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, he granted the Arabs their independent state.
Oke, pada tahun 622, Raja Bizantium Heraclius memberikan kemerdekaan kepada negara Arab.
They celebrated this by minting on their coins after the believer's case has been settled.
Ya, mereka merayakan ini dengan cara mencetak tulisan pada koin dengan tulisan setelah semua kasus atau semua urusan diselesaikan.
Okay, so you think that's the case that the Bani Umayyah came into power to become an Islamic state?
Yes, the most important thing was they had an independent Arab state, and this is the case that has been settled. The Hijrah is a later story, and it has been attached to Muhammad to make him more like Moses. Because in the Bible, there is a verse that says a prophet like Moses. You know?
Oke. Kemudian Sofi bertanya bahwa jadi inilah ya saatnya di mana pertama kali Umayyah naik berjaya atau bertahta. Kemudian juga bahwa sebenarnya hijrah sama sekali tidak disebutkan sama sekali gitu kan. Yang di koin tersebut hanya disebutkan bahwa setelah semua urusan atau kasus diselesaikan. Nah, pentingnya hijrah ini disebutkan, awal-awal disebutkan dalam hadis pertama atau di Ibnu Ishaq bahwa ingin membuat Muhammad sama seperti Musa yang membawa bangsa keluar dari Mesir.
I think if someone wants to type a question in the chat, we could take this also.
Okay, let me check the chat first. Oh, silakan Pak Deki, Pak Verbum.
Ya, salam kenal Brother Murad. Saya dalam bahasa Indonesia aja ya, karena nanti juga diterjemahkan juga. Saya datang terlambat, tidak ikuti runtutan argumen ya, tapi kalau saya tidak salah tangkap, poin argumennya adalah soal tipologi. Artinya fabrikasi atau rekayasa mengenai hijrah itu dilakukan untuk tujuan memiripkan kisah Muhammad dengan Musa dan Yesus. Itu kira-kira inti dari argumen kesimpulan argumen dari Brother Murad ya. Nah, kalau kita gunakan ini di dalam argumen, salah satu keberatan yang mungkin akan kita dapatkan dari mereka bagi yang terpelajar ya. Memang kebanyakan kadrun itu kan otaknya keledai, tapi ada juga yang terpelajar. Bagi yang terpelajar, mereka akan mengatakan bahwa hal serupa juga kita dapatkan di dalam Alkitab. Misalnya Injil Matius. 5 pasal pertama itu kemiripan demi kemiripan antara Yesus dengan Musa. Nah, kalau asumsi tidak dinyatakannya adalah karena itu tipologi, maka tidak historikal. Dengan standar yang sama, mereka juga bisa menyerang Alkitab. Bagaimana Brother Murad menjawab keberatan itu kalau mereka bawa di dalam, kalau kita gunakan ini di dalam diskusi.
Oke, sebentar Pak Diki ya. Bu Sofi
Ya.
bisa bantu terjemahkan, mungkin terlalu panjang. Bu Sofi.
Okay, Brother Murad,
Uh.
this is our pastor, one of our pastor, Pastor Deki Ngandas. So he's really glad to meet you, and he's asking about if you said that the hijrah is never happened. So it's just a typology for Muhammad to connect it with Moses, right?
Yes.
So it's not historically happened. So the same argument Muslims used to attack us also. For example, in the Gospel of Matthew, the first 5 chapters. But have you familiar with our Bible? Pak Deki Ngandas, Murad ini bukan Kristen masalahnya, Pak.
Oh.
Yes, I know about the Bible. Yes.
Oh, okay. You're familiar with our Bible. So the first 5 chapter in the Matthew. So it's a very chronological order. So Matthew wants to portray Jesus as a typology of Moses also. So what do you think about this connection? So they use this kind of argument to attack us.
There is a big difference, because in the New Testament, Jesus is supposedly going to fulfill everything that's in the Old Testament. So if he does fulfill it, then there is no problem, if you want to translate.
Bu Sofi,
Ya.
lanjut aja Bu Sofi.
Saya bisa ngerti yang dia ngomong. Dia bisa lanjut.
Iya. Ya. Jadi Yesus itu menggenapi nubuatan di dalam perjanjian lama ya. Ini ada perbedaan ya dengan Muhammad. Oke, Pak Deki ada any other question, Pak Deki?
I still wanted to tell him something.
Ya, oke. Go on, Murad.
But if you look at Islam, it says that the Bible is corrupted. So you can't make Muhammad like Moses or like Jesus. So this is why it's different.
Jadi Muslim mengatakan bahwa Alkitab ini terkorupsi ya atau diubah-ubah begitu ya. Sehingga mereka ingin membuat potret Muhammad ini seperti Musa atau seperti Yesus. Oke, I have a question, Brother Murad. Pak Diki ada lagi nggak sebelum saya tanya?
Ibu Sofi dulu lah, nanti lagi.
Okay. So Brother Murad, your finding is very interesting that hijrah never happened. So I also checked in the hadiths that never mention hijrah from Mecca to Medina, right? So I also find that Quran was also Muslim don't have in the time of Muhammad or the Utsmanic Musaf. They don't have. They have in the 8th century. So also in the Umayyad empowerment, when Umayyad became empowered. So what do you think? Is this some make-up story from the Islamic to create a prophet named Muhammad and to create a book called Quran? Because I also find in many early manuscripts in the Islamic, what they claim is six early manuscripts in the Quran, they inserted the word Allah so much. Thousands of them. They inserted the word Allah in the early manuscript of Quran. And also, I found the connection that Khalifah Ibn Malik Al-Marwan, Khalifah Al-Marwan, Khalifah Ibn Malik Al-Marwan, yeah, the first Umayyad, or the fifth, yeah, the fifth Khalifah, Abdul Malik.
Yes, 5th.
Yeah. Her mother's name was Aminah, if I'm not mistaken, and her wife was Zainab, Aisha, and other. Is that a coincidence, something, or is this just they made up this religion of Islam? What do you think about that?
There is a lot of things that is Abdul Malik. You can find it very similar to Muhammad. One of them is the name of the mother. And yes, they injected the word Allah many times, and also they injected many times the word and his messenger, and his prophet, so that they inject the word Muhammad in the early manuscript, And yes, the hijrah never happened. And remember, the Quran never mentioned anything about the hijrah. Any mention, it's like vague and it has nothing to do with Muhammad. But the later Islamic tradition, they want you to believe that it is Muhammad. So no, there is no evidence. And if someone has evidence, they can show me. You see?
Oke, saya terjemahkan ya. Jadi penemuan yang dikatakan oleh Sister Murad ini sama dengan yang saya temukan dan besok videonya akan saya keluarkan. Jadi ketika kita menyelidiki mengenai Quran, Muslim sama sekali tidak punya Quran zaman Muhammad abad ke-7 ataupun pada zaman Utsman. Jadi mereka tidak punya mushaf Utsmanik sama sekali ya. Mereka klaim sebagai mushaf Utsmanik. Mereka punya Quran paling tua sekarang abad ke-8. Ya, akhir abad ke-8 atau awal abad ke-9. Dan di dalam manuskrip Quran awal ini ternyata banyak sekali penyisipan kata-kata Allah. Ya, jadi ketika saya menyelidiki ini tuh luar biasa banyaknya disisipkan kata-kata Allah yang padahal tidak ada di early manuscript. Nah, saya membuat ini bertanya-tanya kenapa Sir Murad tadi mengatakan hijrah itu baru muncul Ibn Hisham punya cerita. Ya kira-kira ketika Bani Umayyah ini mulai naik ya, mulai berkuasa dan pada zaman Abdul Malik bin Marwan. Demikian juga Quran. Quran itu baru mulai muncul ketika pada zaman Abdul Malik bin Marwan ya. Kemudian ada kemiripan antara cerita-cerita Abdul Malik bin Marwan ini, seperti nama ibunya Aminah, nama istrinya juga Zainab, Aisyah dan lain-lain. Nah, ini ada kemiripan dan kemungkinan ini juga merupakan cerita yang diinvensi ya atau dibuat-buat, dikarang-karang ya. Nah, ini kita tidak tahu, tetapi kita akan mengajukan ini sebagai bukti-bukti supaya Muslim bisa berpikir. Menurut Pak Deki bagaimana Pak penemuan kita ini?
Sorry, saya belum bisa komentar, saya lagi pikirkan sesuatu yang lain. Tapi ada kaitannya juga dengan kesimpulannya Brother Murad. Saya lagi baca tentang suatu artikel jurnal tentang Abraham and Nimrod in the Shadow of Zarathustra. Itu menarik sekali karena rupanya berulang kali data di dalam Quran tentang Abraham diselamatkan dari tungku api. Itu sebenarnya bukan sekadar karena ada kesalahan terjemahan dari Rabbi Ben Uziel pada abad pertama, tapi satu kesengajaan ditafsirkan demikian untuk memiripkan Muhammad dengan Abraham. Nah tadi kan Brother Murad bilang hijrah itu dimaksudkan untuk bikin kemiripan antara Muhammad dengan Moses, dengan Musa. Ternyata hal yang sama juga yang juga saya temukan ketika teliti tentang Abraham dikeluarkan dari api. Mereka berupaya membuat kemiripan antara Abraham dengan Muhammad. Ya. Itu sesuatu yang sangat menarik.
Oke. Thank you. Terima kasih Pak Diki. Brother Murad, do you have anything to add?
What was he talking about? Abraham is like Muhammad also?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
yeah.
You see, Muhammad, when he crushed the idols of the pagans, it is exactly the same story as Abraham did. But the story, it does not come from the Old Testament. It comes from the Midrash Rabbah, which is a later Jewish source. So that like grandfather, like son.
So you think this Fatu Makkah never happened also?
Which one?
The one Muhammad conquered Makkah and smashed out all the idols in the Kaaba.
Smashing all the idols, I think it never happened because there is no evidence at all for that. I think this is just to make him more like Abraham.
So do you think Muhammad is historical figure or just imaginary figure?
He is historical, but he is much different than we think. He is a man who was in probably in Iraq and went west to conquer Palestine. This is the real Muhammad that we get from the sources.
No, that's very interesting, brother.
I wanted to add something also, if I may.
Yes.
You see in the Quran, it speaks about the Romans, and it is one of the superpowers it speaks about. It says that the Romans, when they were defeated, they triumphed and they conquered back. And the mu'mineen, who are the believers, they were happy with that. So you have to ask yourself, why are the believers happy that Rome is coming back stronger? It is easy, the answer. It is because Rome gave them their independent state, and this is what we find on the Islamic coins. It is important to translate this part if you may.
Ya, silakan. Ya, jadi tadi kenapa dikatakan di dalam sejarah itu Roma memberikan kemenangan kepada kekhalifahan Islam ini ya, teman-teman. Jadi mereka sangat senang sekali bahwa Roma itu memberikan kembali seakan-akan kemerdekaan daripada kekhalifahan Islam ini. Ya, jadi kalau menurut Murad sebenarnya Muhammad itu sebenarnya tokoh nyata, tokoh sejarah nyata yang mungkin di Irak, kemudian dia menaklukkan Palestina. Jadi mungkin tokoh nyata tapi tidak seperti yang digambarkan atau dibayangkan di dalam cerita-cerita tradisi Islam yang kita dengar. Oke, brother.
Jadi Muhammad itu lebih, kalau menurut Murad, lebih seperti tokoh legenda ya. Artinya orangnya sebenarnya biasa aja, cuman dalam cerita selanjutnya itu makin lama makin heboh.
Yeah. So according to you, Murad, Muhammad is just an ordinary man. So Muslims try to frame him as like super prophet, something.
Yes, and he was trying to conquer Jerusalem, but he failed. And this was like the apocalypse. So this is a huge failure. So they had to later make him into a super prophet. It's very important.
I've never heard that Muhammad tried to conquer Jerusalem before.
If you want to know this, you will find it in the Armenian sources, in the old Syriac sources, in Christian sources, the eyewitness sources that was written at that time.
When do you think that happened? What year do you think that happened? Before the Hijrah, after the Hijrah, or Muhammad conquered Jerusalem?
It's after the Hijrah, if the Hijrah happened, after.
Okay.
Can I ask something to Brother Murad?
Yes.
Yeah, silakan.
Yeah. So, Saint Murad, I just want to know, have you made this known to your Arab friends or like scholars, and what kind of feedback or refutation do they give you?
With Arab friends, no, but I did a video, a longer presentation with Dr. J. Smith about the same issue. And I found, I've read almost all the comments, and no comment came back with a good evidence. None. Everything I find that they get me back, it says according to the Arabs, not Hijri. We don't find this word Hijri at all.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Ya, jadi kalau teman-teman ada yang bisa memberikan bukti bahwa hijrah ini benar-benar terjadi, tapi jangan dari sumber-sumber cerita-cerita orang Muslim ya. Anda harus benar-benar bisa memberikan bukti secara arkeologis, secara sejarah bahwa ini adalah historical event. Jadi Anda harus bisa memberikan bukti. Silahkan Anda bisa ke channel YouTube-nya Sheikh Murad ya.
Bu Sofi, saya mau tanya lagi. Sheikh Murad ini Islam apa Kristen, toh?
Ex-Muslim, Pak.
Oh, ex-Muslim. Oke, saya ada juga yang saya bayangkan, saya pikirkan ini suatu legenda yang tidak masuk akal. Andai kata, anggap saja hijrah itu terjadi. Bagaimana dengan kisah 7 orang yang tidur di gua? Kapan mereka bisa tidur ratusan tahun, padahal jarak hijrah dan penindasan dalam versinya hijrahnya orang Muslim, itu hanya waktu yang relatif singkat. Menurut saya ini pun juga sesuatu yang mustahil terjadi. Bagaimana mungkin ada kisah 7 orang Muslim tidur ratusan tahun, padahal hijrah itu hanya suatu periode pendek dalam cerita yang versinya hijrah mengenai penindasan Muslim. Ini kan suatu mitos menurut saya.
Yeah, Sir Murad, what do you think about the 7 sleepers in the cave in the Quran story? Pak Gracia asked you about this 7 sleepers. Is that a myth? Just a myth too, and it never happened? Because if we compare to the Hijrah, so the persecution of the Muslims is just in a short period of time. So, do you think the 7 sleepers in the cave that sleep for I don't know how many 100 years? What do you think about this story in the Quran?
Well, this story, we know exactly where it came from. It came from someone called Yaqub al-Suruji or Jacob of Suruj. You can translate as I'm talking.
Ya, jadi cerita mengenai 7 orang yang tertidur di dalam gua itu sebenarnya kita tahu dengan pasti itu dari Yakub ya, dari Yakub al-Suruji.
This source is hundreds of years before Islam, and it was speaking about the persecution of Christians.
Jadi cerita ini mengenai orang-orang yang dipersekusi karena mereka itu Kristen dan ini ada ratusan tahun sebelum zaman Islam.
Kalau kisah yang tentang 7 orang Kristen Syria di dalam legenda Kristen orang Ortodoks Syria saya tahu. Yang saya tanyakan ini yang mengenai 7 orang yang tidur di gua versi Islam. Ini bukan sejarah menurut saya, dugaan saya, ini mitos. Karena kalau dilihat dari durasi waktu hijrah, penindasannya kan cuma sedikit. Bagaimana mungkin ada kisah di dalam Islam yang mirip dengan kisahnya orang Kristen ratusan tahun sebelum Islam ada, orang Islam tertidur ratusan tahun, itu kan mustahil. Karena
Itu
periode
surah berapa Pak Gracia?
Al-Kahfi, surah Al-Kahfi.
Oh,
Surah Al-Kahfi.
tapi kata Pak Murad tadi itu berasal dari legenda Syria sih Pak Gracia.
Kalau
Dimirip-miripin.
kalau dari legenda Syria saya tahu dokumennya, saya sudah baca. Kalau di dalam cerita Kristen mengalami penindasan ratusan tahun. Dari abad pertama sampai awal abad 4. Jadi kalau ada orang dalam legenda Syria Kristen tertidur ratusan tahun, itu masuk akal. Sedangkan kalau ini dimasukkan di dalam Islam, kalau kita melihat kronologi sejarahnya, berdasarkan versi hijrah, itu kan periodenya sedikit. Jadi bagaimana bisa dikisahkan suatu penindasan di mana orang Muslim tidur ratusan tahun? Ini menurut saya ini mitos. Dugaan
Jadi
saya.
yang di surat Al-Kahfi itu Muslim ya Pak yang tertidur ya?
Ya Islamnya kan di untuk versinya Islam ini. Menurut Pak Murad gimana gitu?
Oh yeah, Sheikh Murad. So Pastor Gracia asked you that he knows about the Syriac story about the 7 sleepers from the Syriac story, but in Al-Kahfi, in Surah Al-Kahfi, it's talking about the Muslim sleepers, right? The 7 sleepers.
It did not say Muslims. It said believers.
Oh, believers. So it doesn't say that they were Muslims or they were Christians. So we don't know who is the 7 sleepers.
The Quran took the story and it adopted it, but there is no proof it's talking about Muslims. It just adopted the same story about Christians.
I see. Berarti surah Al-Kahfi tidak merujuk tentang kisah orang Muslim yang ditindas gitu kan maksudnya?
Iya, hanya orang percaya gitu aja Pak. Ini lucu lagi nih. Ya, oke, Brother Murad.
Okay,
Ada lagi teman-teman?
I can still take some questions if someone wants to ask a
Saya
question.
boleh nanya, Bani?
Ya, silakan.
Oke, kalau berdasarkan tadi paparan sejarah bukti-bukti evidence tentang hijrah dan lain-lain, apakah ada kemungkinan bahwa Islam itu sebenarnya baru dibentuk pada saat Bani Umayyah yang siapa tadi itu? Abdul Malik.
Khalifah Abdul Malik bin Marwan.
Sebelum ada Abdul Malik bin Marwan, apakah artinya belum ada Islam dan belum ada Muhammad? Itu pertanyaan saya.
Yeah, Sheikh Murad. So, do you think about the archaeological evidence and the historical evidence that you mentioned before? Pak siapa Pak? Sorry Pak.
Bani.
Pak Bani asked you that is that possible that Islam and Muhammad it was created in the Umayyad when Abdul Malik bin Marwan was reigned to become king? So they invented this Islam and Muhammad?
Well, it was multiple layers. The first layer was the Quran. Abdul Malik is the one who gathered the Quran under his governor Al-Hajjaj. The word Muhammad, it was there, but it meant Jesus. This is a whole different story. But during the Abbasid times, the word Muhammad meant the Arabian prophet, and then they made the biography. So the first biography was made during the Abbasid time, not the Umayyads. So the Umayyads came with the Quran, and the Abbasids came with Muhammad, if you like.
Oke, jadi sebenarnya ada dua layer, ada dua bagian ya, ada dua kisah cerita, Pak. Pada waktu Bani Umayyah itu sebenarnya mereka mengumpulkan Quran dulu di bawah perintah Abdul Malik bin Marwan dengan gubernurnya Al-Hajjaj bin Yusuf. Jadi mereka membuat Quran dulu, memang ada nama Muhammad di situ, tetapi Muhammad ini tertuju kepada Yesus sebenarnya, gelar untuk Yesus. Kemudian mereka membuat biografi mengenai Muhammad pada zaman Bani Abbasiyah sebenarnya. Nah, Bani Abbasiyah inilah yang merujuk bahwa Muhammad ini merupakan seorang nabi Arab. Jadi mereka menciptakan tokoh Nabi Arab ini.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Sheikh Murad, also I also investigate about this thing that the Quran was also start from the Umayyah, and the name, the terminology Islam and Muslims first was also in the Umayyad time. So never before. They never mentioned about Islam. They never mentioned about Muslims before the Umayyah reign into power.
Yes, they were called the Hajireens from Hagar, or Ishmaelites from Ishmael, or
Muhajirin, ya.
Saracens.
Ya. Jadi memang kata Islam dan kata Muhammad itu baru pertama kali muncul di dalam sejarah, dalam arkeologi, memang pada waktu masa Bani Umayyah. Jadi sebelumnya mereka tidak mengenal kata Islam ataupun kata Muslim, ya, ataupun kata Muhammad. Jadi sebelumnya orang-orang ini dipanggilnya Saracen, Ismailit, Muhajirin, atau Saracen, Muhajirun, ya. Magriye kalau saya nggak salah satunya Magriye. Ada lagi teman-teman?
I have a question.
Yes.
This question is probably not related to this hijrah. I'm not sure if anybody remember about the story where Muhammad and Abu Bakr hide in a cave, and the cave was covered by the web, yeah, with the spider web, and they cannot find where Muhammad is because they believe that if the cave was covered with the spider web, they might not be there. So my question, I'm thinking on the science, how fast? I don't think the spider can be that fast to cover the whole cave with the web. And my question to you is that also a daydreaming story, or is that true? This is what you think about this.
Well, we know exactly where the story comes from. It comes from Saint Felix of Nola. I think he is from Algeria. You have the same story. And these stories were metaphors just to give you, and there are a lot of Christian stories that are there to give you a certain, a certain moral story. But then they took the story and they injected it onto Muhammad and Abu Bakr. Also, there is a logical fallacy, because if Muhammad and Abu Bakr, they went with camels, where did they hide their camels? So, of course, the Quraysh would see the camels and they know that someone is there. You see?
So in other words, this is another copycat story from something else.
Yes, from Saint Felix of Nola.
And I have another question, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course.
Okay. I read a book about the story of Muhammad, and it tells a story about when Muhammad was a child. When he was a child, with who was his foster mom.
Yes.
That the shadow, the the clouds follow him the whole time, so it's always cover him, and that they claim that as a miracle, and they claim that story as because God protected Muhammad. So God always give him the clouds wherever he goes, so he never get hot, or you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
So
Well, you
was
see,
that also a story that copycat from something else?
I don't know any original story which has the same thing. So this might be an original Islamic invention. But if you are the state and you say whatever you like, and no one has a counter narrative, then you can say anything. You can say the clouds were going after him, that he fled to the moon, anything, because no one is countering the narrative. So nothing surprising, you know.
Okay, because we are as a child ex-Muslim, and you know that we're fed up with all of the miracle stories, and we believe that it's almost like in the La La Land, it's almost like an imagination, but we just believe it. But now we're trying to see the truth of it, and we read books after books after books to find out whether it's true, whether it's just an imagination. Just like Sinbad, the story of Sinbad, the story of Aladdin, and I don't think that's a real story. It's just an imagination of a child.
You see in the Quran, it says, for example, that the hour has come near and the moon has been split. But did it say that Muhammad split the moon? Of course not, because this actually is talking about the apocalypse, and it has nothing to do with Muhammad. So the whole stories that they made in the Islamic tradition, they are made to make Muhammad a super prophet. And in short, I always say the Quran does not know Muhammad. Even the 4 mentions of Muhammad, they are of Jesus Christ. It means the praised one, the anointed one. So the Quran really doesn't know who is this guy Muhammad.
Thank you, brother.
Shalom, bisa saya bertanya?
Ya,
Tunggu,
silakan,
Ibu
Bu.
Sofi nggak diterjemahkan ke Indonesia?
Baik, oke.
Oke, tadi agak panjang. Jadi Bu Lindsay tadi kan tanya mengenai kisah mengenai Muhammad dan Abu Bakar tadi yang di gua, kemudian ada sarang laba-laba yang menutupinya sehingga mereka nggak jadi dibunuh dan sebagainya. Bu Lindsay tanya ini dari mana ceritanya? Kemudian Murad mengatakan ini dari Saint Felix of Nola gitu ya, dari Saint Felix Nola. Ini cerita yang sama nih, ditutupi sarang laba-laba gitu. Tapi ini merupakan cerita dongeng yang dibuat oleh orang Kristen untuk diambil pelajaran moralnya. Jadi nggak benar-benar terjadi sebenarnya seperti itu ya cerita-cerita. Kemudian Bu Lindsay tanya lagi nih, kalau di dalam sirah itu kan ada dikatakan Muhammad waktu kecil itu dinaungi oleh awan sehingga nggak kehujanan, nggak kepanasan kayak gitu ya. Itu cerita beneran apa enggak tuh? Kemudian Murad mengatakan, wah saya belum tahu itu cerita diambil dari mana, kisah yang sebenarnya. Ya mungkin juga terjadi, bisa juga itu juga kisah-kisah miracle seperti itu juga copycat juga, maksudnya nyontek juga, tapi kita belum tahu dari mana sumbernya. Ya, kemudian ada banyak kisah-kisah di dalam Quran sebenarnya seperti misalnya tadi Murad mengatakan ketika bulan terbelah katanya ya. Jadi waktu sudah dekat katanya, waktu maksudnya hari kiamat, kemudian bulan terbelah, tapi tidak dikatakan Muhammad membelah bulan. Jadi ini nggak ada hubungannya dengan Muhammad. Kemudian di dalam Quran ketika nama Muhammad disebut 4 kali, itu sebenarnya tidak ada hubungannya dengan Nabi Muhammad, karena Muhammad merupakan gelar untuk yang terpuji atau yang diurapi merujuk kepada Yesus, tapi itu mungkin lain topik. Ya silakan Bu.
Oke. Kalau kita melihat sejarah kan, kalau Islam atau Muhammad ini kan nggak ada sejarah yang mendukung dia sebagai Tuhan atau sebagai Nabi. Nah, tapi jadi pertanyaan buat kita atau siapa kuasa yang dibalik Muhammad atau Muslim, dan kedua tujuannya untuk orang Muslim. Kalau kita udah tahu kalau kita percaya Tuhan Yesus, tujuan kita mendapat keselamatan, pengampunan, keselamatan, masuk surga nantinya. Nah, buat orang Muslim apa tujuannya kalau mereka percaya kepada dia? Bahkan kan kalau orang Muslim, sebenarnya kalau kita belajar dengan akal sehat kita, nggak ada yang kita bisa mempercayai dia sebagai nabi atau sebagai Tuhan, sorry. Tapi kok mereka percaya banget, bahkan mau mati buat dia itu. Gitu. Itu aja pertanyaannya dua tadi.
Oke. Yang pertama, kuasa itu maksudnya kuasa apa ya, Bu? Kuasa dari Tuhan, dari atas, apa kuasa siapa yang membentuk tokoh Muhammad?
Ya, menurut mereka kan jadi kuasa yang dibalik Muhammad itu siapa sebenarnya? Gitu. Kalau kita kan di Kristen di luar Yesus sudah pasti, ya kan?
Ya,
kata firman
kuasa itu maksudnya kuasa ilahi gitu ya? Atau siapa maksudnya kekuatan dibalik Muhammad ini?
Apa gitu? Kalau kita kan kuasa ilahi, kalau dia menurut orang Muslim kan percaya bahwa itu kuasa ilahi, benar itu kuasa ilahi. Itu aja, makasih.
Okay. This lady asked you two questions. The first question is, who is the power authority behind Muhammad? What do you think about that?
Well, if we know now that Muhammad was not really preaching the Quran or anything, then we know that the Umayyads are the one who came up with the Quran, and the Abbasids are the one who came up with his biography.
Oke, jadi kita tahu bahwa Muhammad sebenarnya tidak benar-benar mengkhotbahkan Quran. Kita tidak tahu ya apa yang dikhotbahkan Muhammad pada waktu itu, tetapi Bani Umayyah inilah yang mengumpulkan Quran pada waktu itu, Bu. Jadi mereka yang gathers atau mengumpulkan semua Quran ini, mereka membentuk Quran yang dikenal sekarang ini. Kemudian Bani Abbasiyah lah yang membuat biografi mengenai seorang nabi dari Arab yang bernama Muhammad. Begitu, Bu.
Oke, makasih.
Yeah, the second question is, what is Muslims expect about believing in Muhammad and Islam? Because as a Christian, we believe in the salvation. If we believe in Jesus, He saved our souls for eternity life. So what Muslims actually expect? They believe Muhammad was a prophet, because no one confirmed that Muhammad was a prophet.
Well, you see, in Islam, you cannot trust God, because you can do everything right, and in the end, He can choose to put you in hellfire, or you can do everything wrong, and He can choose to forgive you. So this is the deal in Islam. You never feel satisfied. A Christian knows in the end that he has salvation, but a Muslim is always not satisfied and always scared, because God could make a plot and in the end does not save him. So he will be miserable. This is not a happy life, you see.
Oke, jadi kalau di Muslim mereka nggak tahu, Bu, mereka hanya melakukan kebaikan aja, ya kemudian mereka menjauhi larangan-larangan Allah, tapi mereka nggak tahu apakah pasti selamat apa enggak. Beda dengan orang Kristen yang mempunyai kepastian di dalam Yesus bahwa kita diselamatkan. Jadi kalau Muslim itu selalu ada di dalam ketakutan. Nah, mungkin teman-teman bisa menanyakan sesuatu tentang bahasa Arab, karena Murad ini adalah orang Arab asli, teman-teman ya. Jadi berkaitan mungkin dengan sesuatu yang Anda concern dengan bahasa Arabnya. Jadi pertanyaan kita akan lebih berbobot lagi. Silakan teman-teman.
Ini harusnya ada Pak Adil nih.
Ya, soalnya ini orang Arab asli teman-teman. Jadi ini kesempatan kita ya untuk bertanya sesuatu di dalam Quran.
Saya mungkin bisa nanya ya. Ada beberapa ayat dalam Quran yang tidak bisa diterjemahkan. Kayak alif lam mim seperti itu. Apakah itu berasal dari bahasa Arab atau bahasa mana ya? Atau Yasin?
Yeah, what do you think about alif lam mim and Yasin? Do you think it's an Arabic word or is this a foreign word? What do you think?
Well, this is a huge research, because the Quran, I think, was originally written in Aramaic, Syriac. Aramaic, which is the language that was the lingua franca used at that time. So these words are 100% Aramaic, they have meaning, and the Quran was later Arabized at a later stage.
Ya, jadi menurut Murad sebenarnya Quran itu ditulis dalam bahasa Aramaik ya. Jadi pada waktu itu adalah lingua franca atau bahasa internasional yang digunakan. Pada waktu zaman Muhammad tuh orang banyak menggunakan bahasa Aramaik sebenarnya. Nah, jadi kemudian diarabisasi. Jadi sebenarnya kata-kata itu sebenarnya di dalam bahasa Aramaik itu ada artinya, tetapi ketika diarabisasi menjadi tidak ada artinya, seperti itu, Pak. Jadi ada banyak sekali kata-kata asing di dalam Quran.
Ya. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Okay, Murad, I want to ask you something about Arabic words in the Quran, because, I will use the advantage that you are an Arab and you are fluent in Arabic. So I want to ask about this this one obstacle that salawat. You see in the Islamic theology and Islam, Allah is praying, right? Praying for Muhammad. So people in Indonesia, they try that you don't know Arabic, you don't know this word. They said that if Jesus was God, why is he praying to the Father? So when I investigate deeper, that also the title of the Prophet is Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, means Allah prays on him and salute him, right? So can you explain a little bit about that and the root word which mean Allah Salah? Is that right, or it comes from the word sila or something? Can you explain about this word?
You see the word salah in its original Aramaic, it just means not pray, but something like call upon, something like this. But in the Quran it says Salla ala Nabi, meaning he prayed on the Prophet. So it's something like blessed the Prophet. But people like Muhammad Hajjab, they say for, and other people say to, but the word ala in Arabic, it only means on. So it means that God is praying on the Prophet, meaning like he is blessing him. You know, like a priest, he could put his hand over the head of someone and bless him. So it just means he is blessing him. It doesn't mean that he is praying for someone. Although if you read it literally, it could mean that Allah is praying to Muhammad. But in reality,
For Muhammad.
No, not for. It's on. Ala means on.
Pray on. Okay. Pray on Muhammad.
Yes.
So do you think
of course, there is a problem that Allah prays. He prays to who? Of course, this is a problem. But pray for or to, no, it's on. It means he is blessing him. You see?
Okay. So the word blessing is barakah, right?
Yes.
So when I investigated, that means Allah prayed, then Allah really prayed. Because in some of the hadiths, it says that Allah prayed. Even in the, you say Isra Mi'raj? In the Isra Mi'raj even?
Yes, you are speaking now as if it's 100% Arabic, but I'm telling you the original Aramaic, it just means blessed. So, but if you read it today as Arabic, then you are right. He prays to Muhammad and he prays to another God. This is the corrupted Arabic of today. You see?
Okay, so Allah and his angels blessings Muhammad.
Yes, this is the original meaning, but now it means pray to Muhammad.
Okay. So right now it means pray, right? Because the word saluna or salah, it always means pray.
It means pray, yes. So you are right in your polemics when you're speaking with Muslims. You have confidence because it's right.
Maybe I want to ask, if I may, just, I'm sorry, taking advantage of your Arabic speaking about Ahad and Akbar. Ahad and Akbar. Can you elaborate about these two words, Saint Murad?
Yes, you see the word Ahad. Again, this is the problem. The Quran was originally in Aramaic. So the word Ahad is a Hebrew word which means one, and it's in the Hebrew Bible. It says it says Abraham, our God is Ahad, is one. But then when you take it into Arabic now, the Quran is now Arabic, it means Ahad, meaning one of. So as if one of multiple gods. And this is a huge problem. And the word Akbar, it means bigger. So now when you say Allahu Akbar, it means God is bigger. Bigger than whom? So this is also another problem. So you have to restore the Quran to its original Aramaic form so that you understand what it truly meant.
Okay, but in Arabic it means one of, yeah, confirm, yeah,
one of, yes, one of,
and bigger, yeah.
And the other one is bigger, yes.
Jadi kata ahad itu artinya salah satu dari, ya. Jadi salah satu dari banyak Allah sebenarnya. Kalau memang kita kembalikan ke Aramaik, bahasa Aramaiknya originalnya Murad mengatakan itu sama ya dengan kata ehkat di dalam Alkitab kita. Tapi kalau sekarang di dalam bahasa Arabik menjadi one of atau salah satu dari, dan kata akbar artinya lebih besar, bukan yang terbesar, bukan azim ya, tapi akbar. Nah ini kalau lebih besar artinya kan lebih besar dari apa? Harus di-compare dengan sesuatu yang lain begitu. Ya. Oke, ada pertanyaan lain teman-teman?
Murad. Oh,
Well, it literally means Allah is bigger than. If you want to say Allah is great, it will be Allah Azim. There is no other word. No, Allahu Akbar means Allah is bigger than.
Jadi Allahu Akbar artinya Allah lebih besar dari. Ya, kalau Allah tuh paling besar, artinya Allah azim katanya tadi. Ya, teman-teman, ada yang lain, teman-teman?
kata nun.
Ya. Bu, shalom.
Oke,
Shalom.
siapa dulu?
Ya,
silakan.
Bu Sofiatul. Ya, dengan Christine. Mau tanya Bu, yang 33 nama Allah, kayak Allah Maha Besar, Allah Maha Pengasih gitu Bu. Jadi,
nama Allah.
oh 99 ya, bukan 33 ya. Nah, jadi gimana ya? Kan Allah tuh maha segalanya, bisa segalanya. Lalu pada saat Muslim saya ngobrol balik ke Muslim, saya bilang mungkin nggak Allah jadi manusia. Nah itu mereka tidak bisa terima, bahkan tapi mereka tahu ayat itu kan Bu, kalau Allah itu maha segalanya. Nah itu bagaimana Bu? Kalau mereka masih ngotot ya pakai ayat yang itu Bu, yang Allah tidak bisa Bu diwujudkan dengan zat dan segala macam. Gimana Bu? Itu saja, terima kasih.
Ya, mungkin nanti ya, nanti Bu Kris, mungkin nanti lain kali ya Bu Linsia. Ini masih yang berhubungan dengan hijrah dulu ya.
Oke, thank you.
Ya. Oke, Pastor Diki mungkin silakan.
Ya, ada satu kata yang saya lihat di beberapa terjemah mereka sama sekali tidak terjemahkan. Nun di surat 68 ayat 1 itu kenapa ya itu?
Yeah, Pastor Diki asked you about why Nun was not translated in any other language in Surah 68. What do you think?
Nun?
Yeah, 68:1.
The word Nun.
Well, in Aramaic, every letter has a meaning. People, they don't know Aramaic, that's why they don't know what does this word mean. Actually, it means fish, the fish of Jonah.
Yeah, whale.
Whale or fish of Jonah. That's in Aramaic.
Jadi kata non itu artinya ikan ya.
Yeah.
Okay, one more. Yeah, okay, one more question, Brother Murad. I want to ask you something. Is there any grammatical error right now in the Quran in Hafs version? As you as an Arab, you know Arabic very well. So I think we have an article that says that Saudi Arabia, they wants to corrections the Quran because it has like 2,500 grammatical errors in the Quran. So you, as an Arabic speaker, what do you think? Is there any errors in this Arabic Quran right now?
Yes, there are multiple. There are a lot of grammatical mistakes. But again, if you look at the original Aramaic, if you remove all the dots, remove all the diacritical marks, you will find that this is a correct Aramaic form, no problem. But the people who added the dots later, at a later stage, they made all these mistakes. You see?
Oh, oke. Oke, jadi saya tanya tadi, apakah ada kesalahan gramatikal di dalam Quran yang ada sekarang? Karena Arab Saudi pengen merevisi Quran yang ada sekarang ini, ada sekitar 2.500 kesalahan gramatikal di dalam Quran yang ada sekarang ini. Dan saya bertanya, Murad orang Arab Saudi asli ya, jadi dia orang Arab asli, bahasanya Arab, dia mengatakan iya, ada banyak sekali ribuan kesalahan gramatikal di dalam Quran yang ada sekarang, tapi karena aslinya bahasa Aramaik. Jadi kalau dalam bahasa Aramaik sebenarnya nggak ada masalah, tetapi ketika ditambahkan titik-titik vokalnya itu, ya, fata dama kasrahnya itu menjadi diarabisasi, jadi ada banyak kesalahan di dalam Quran itu.
Saya ada pertanyaan.
Ya, oke, silakan Pak Deki.
Jadi kalau ikuti Pak Murad ini kan dia percaya bahwa sumber asli Quran itu kan berbahasa Aramaik. Sebenarnya kita punya usulan teori yang sama tentang beberapa kitab di dalam Perjanjian Baru, misalnya Injil Matius. Beberapa scholar beranggapan bahwa naskah aslinya itu di dalam bahasa Aramaik. Problemnya adalah tidak ada bukti tekstual untuk dugaan itu. Nah, pertanyaan saya dalam kaitan dengan yang dikatakan Pak Murad adalah ada tidak bukti tekstual predate the Quran yang mendahului Quran yang bisa dijadikan acuan untuk kita sebut saja asumsi bahwa original source dari Quran itu Aramaik.
Yes, Sheikh Murad, is there any predate textual evidence for the Quranic in Aramaic language? So, for example, the Gospel of Matthew, it has been said an assumption that the original language of the Gospel of Matthew was written in Aramaic also, but is that in the case of the Quran, do you have any evidence that support your claim that Quran was originally written in Aramaic?
You see, there is a professor called Gabriel Sauma, and he came on TV, and he got the original Aramaic, the original Quranic manuscript, the ones that you call Sana'a and Birmingham, all this stuff. And he read it 100% Aramaic. He said this is Aramaic, and he read it very easily. So why can't we read the original Quranic manuscript now? It is not because it does not have dots or vowels. It is because it is a totally different language. I can't read any of the old Quranic manuscript at all. Why? Because this is not even Arabic. You see?
Oke. Jadi ini sebenarnya terkenal nih Pak Deki, bukunya Gabriel Salma ya.
Ya, saya pernah dengar. Cuman yang saya mau tahu adalah ada enggak teks yang predate the Quran, yang teks fisikal ya. Argumen Murad saya ngerti karena argumen yang sama juga digunakan oleh beberapa scholar untuk Perjanjian Baru juga. Cuman ada enggak teksnya itu ya? Itu yang saya mau tahu.
Is there any textual evidence besides the Sana'a manuscript? Do you think any other early manuscript, Topkapi or Samarkand, besides the Sana'a manuscript, are those written all in Aramaic?
Yes, Aramaic, yes.
Ya, katanya manuskrip Sana'a ini juga Aramaik, Pak. Jadi Gabriel Sama ini bisa membaca manuskrip Sama dengan sangat mudah karena ini dalam bahasa Aramaik.
Oh, oke.
Iya, tapi sebenarnya ini juga temuan saya sih, Pak Deki. Jadi ternyata di manuskrip Sama'a itu kata Allah itu ditulis dengan ilayah.
Ilayah.
Jadi kata yah ini diserap menjadi A. Jadi ini memang kemungkinan Aramaik ini kalau kita lihat. Jadi Murad mengatakan bukan karena kita tidak bisa membaca manuskrip Quran awal itu yang Arab gundul itu, bukan karena dia tidak ada tanda-tanda baca vokalnya, tetapi karena itu memang dalam bahasa Aramaik. Jadi Murad juga nggak bisa baca itu. Karena bukan Arabik sama sekali menurut dia.
So in other words, originally from Aramaic, making it like look like an Arab because the letters are the same, and so they like how do you call it, adopted to the Arabic. Am I correct?
Yes, the Aramaic, they added dots on it, they added vowels on it, they added diacritical marks, and this became Arabic because the Arabs, they had no written language. So they used Aramaic and Arabized it. This is exactly what happened.
I have another
And,
question from
that's
public.
why, yes, and that's why you have multiple Quranic readings and they all disagree because they all don't know Aramaic. That's why you have all these problems.
Di-translate
Lina.
dulu, Sofia.
Ya, jadi sebenarnya kalau Sheikh Murad tadi mengatakan ya sebenarnya ini dalam bahasa Aramaik Quran manuskrip yang ada itu, dan mengapa ada variasi banyak sekali variasi bacaan karena memang sebenarnya karena orang Arab pada waktu itu tuh nggak ada tertulisnya begitu ya, mereka belum berkembang huruf-hurufnya sehingga dari Aramaik ini ketika ditambahkan titik-titik tanda bacanya itu malah jadi diarabisasi jadi keliru-keliru gitu. Jadi ada banyak variasinya. Ini perkembangan dari bahasa Aramaik tadi karena mereka nggak bisa baca Aramaiknya. Ya, silakan, Pak Diki.
Apakah dia merujuk juga ke Christoph Luxemburg ini ya, The Syro Aramaic Reading of the Quran?
Brother Muyad, do you think it's refer to Christo Arabic? What, Pak Diki?
Christoph
Yes,
Luxemburg.
yes.
Yeah, The Syro Aramaic Reading of the Quran.
Okay. Yes, exactly. And there is another scholar who did the same work also called Gabriel Sauma.
Yeah, Gabriel Sauma.
So yes.
Thank you.
Okay. It's very clear, brother.
There is a question from the Bintang Daud. Kenapa nama-nama surah di Quran tidak diterjemahkan? Can you translate it, Sophie?
Ya, jadi brother Daud asked you why is the name of the surah Muslims they don't translate it.
Well, this is something that I don't know. Very strange to me, but maybe because they don't want it to be like very different, so they choose not to translate it.
Ya, jadi nggak tahu juga alasannya kenapa ya. Jadi mereka nggak menerjemahkan.
Menurut saya sih karena memalukan. Misalnya surat 2 kan surat sapi betina.
Yeah, because it's very funny when you translate it because there's a lot of animals names in the surah, right? So when you translate it, it's kind of funny in our ears.
Exactly.
Surah Yasin, surat YS, surat Taha, surat TH. Nggak ada artinya itu. Lucu juga itu.
Well, it's not an Aramaic man who made it. It's that they gathered and captured all the Aramaic texts from the churches and then Arabized it. This is question 1.
Wow.
Do you have any proof about your claim? Maybe that's another topic, brother. That's a very interesting because I'm also investigated in this. The
proof is that it is 100% similar. So they took a lot of work of Yaqub of Suruj. They took a lot of work of very well-known Syriac authors, and then they made it into a smaller version. They made it like they made it not very much detailed. Also, the story of Alexander the Great, they took it from Syriac sources. So it's not one author who did it. It's they captured these texts, then Arabized it and made it their own.
Jadi kalau menurut Murad tadi bukan orang Aram ya yang bikin kemudian diterjemahkan ke dalam bahasa Arab, tetapi memang mereka mengambil dari berbagai sumber-sumber cerita-cerita kisah-kisah di dalam kekristenan yang berbahasa Aramaik gitu. Jadi mereka ngambil kisah 7 orang yang tertidur di dalam gua, kemudian jadi ada beberapa orang mengumpulkan kisah-kisah ini. Bukan satu orang.
Wow. Baru dengar saya nih.
Yeah, and they gather stories from Arabic poems, Arabic poetry, and something like from other sources. They gather these stories, and it's not originally one man story.
Well, I disagree only with the idea of Arabic stories, because then this would mean that there was Arabic stories. Everything they took from Aramaic and from Hebrew and sometimes from Iran stories. The later Arabic stories, they were made after the Quran. So when they say that they took from Arabic poetry, no, Arabic poetry didn't exist. This Arabic poetry was made after the Quran. You see?
Wow.
So do you think the Quran was evolved like other scholars said for 200 years until 9th century?
I think so, yes. It took a lot of time and it jumped from multiple stages. So it was first Aramaic, then it got Arabized, then it got the dots. And the Islamic tradition says very clearly who did what. So Al-Hajjaj, he inserted 1,000 alifs into the text. And then we know that they added something called Hamza. And then they added, and actually it's very funny when you think about it, because the name Aisha, it has a Hamza, and the Hamza wasn't even there. So the name and the Hamza was added much later. So you can translate this.
Ya, jadi kalau menurut Syekh Murad sama dengan yang saya juga lakukan pelajaran juga ya, saya belajar juga. Memang Quran ini berevolusi selama jangka waktu yang lama, kira-kira 200 tahun sampai abad ke-9. Jadi dikumpulkan cerita-ceritanya dari orang Yahudi gitu ya, diambil ceritanya, kemudian dari Iran gitu ya, diambil dari mana-mana ceritanya ini dikumpulkan dijadikan satu membentuk Quran yang ada sekarang ini. Seperti itu. Okay, Murad, do you want to add something else? Because I also got, you know, Al-Kindi?
Yes.
Al-Kindi apology. Yeah, Al-Kindi wrote an apology. In his apology, it says that Quran was gathered from many sources, including the Jewish rabbi, including the Arab rabbi, the Arab stories, legends, something like that, and then they gathered it together and they form this book we call the Quran. What do you think about the Al-Kindi testimony about the Quran?
Al-Kindi's testimony is great because it goes very well with what we can see from the sources. We can see clearly that Al-Hajjaj is the one who compiled the Quran with Abdul Malik. Then he added the dots. Then he made it public to read the Quran in the mosques. He is the first one to do this. And you have to know that this is after the second Islamic civil war. All of this happened after the civil war. So this is why it triggered it. You see?
Ya. Jadi Al-Hajjaj itu memang banyak sekali jejak sidik jarinya di dalam Quran kalau kita melihat ya. Dan dia salah satu gubernur yang paling berkuasa pada waktu itu. Dia menambahkan sekitar 1000 alif di dalam Quran. Dia juga menambahkan apa yang disebut dengan Hamzah di kata-kata Aisyah pada waktu itu. Dan kalau kita melihat bahwa ini setelah perang sipil kedua, ya pada waktu itu Al-Hajjaj menetapkan bahwa Quran ini dibaca di masjid-masjid. Itu dia yang memberikan ketetapan ini. Jadi kita lihat memang Quran ini diperkenalkan oleh Al-Hajjaj bin Yusuf. Ya silakan Pak Kodeks.
Ya, makasih. Saya mau menanyakan ini tadi. Do you believe or maybe agree with the Qibla theory from Dan Gibson?
No, I used to, but when I looked deep into the evidence, I found that no, I don't agree with Petra. I think that the early Muslims, they wanted Jerusalem, but they made just small mistakes. And this is easy to believe because from the sources, you will find that Muhammad and his army, they were heading to Jerusalem. So this was always the grand prize, just like we always knew. They wanted Jerusalem.
Oh, so you think the first Qibla was Jerusalem and not Petra?
Yes.
Saya mau tanya lagi Bu Sofia.
Ya, Pak Degi, silakan.
Karena kita mayoritas ya mungkin tidak semua, tapi kita apologis, jadi saya lebih concern dengan efektivitas argumen ini. Posisi ini kan posisi revisionis, artinya membongkar segala sesuatu dasar dari Islamic sources ini kan, soal kesejarahannya dan lain sebagainya. Yang saya mau tanya adalah dalam pengalaman berdiskusinya Pak Murad ini, efektif enggak ini posisi ini ya dalam membuat Muslim untuk berpikir lagi? Karena asumsi awal di dalam diskusi dengan Muslim adalah mereka menerima kebenaran dan otentisitas dari semua sumber-sumber mereka. Nah, kalau kita muncul dengan posisi revisionis semacam ini, from start saja mereka udah nolak.
Mereka nggak percaya sejarah, Pak.
Nah, ya. Jadi mereka kan asumsinya itu jatuh dari langit kan. Nah, kita kan argue from below kan, dari bawah kan, posisi revisionis. Quran tidak benar, hadis historinya tidak benar dan lain sebagainya. Nah, jadi kita membutuhkan banyak step untuk masuk di dalam diskusi. Nah, efektif nggak ini posisi ini kita bawa di dalam diskusi dengan Muslim?
Okay, Brother Murad. So, from your experience, did you have a good discussion with Muslims about this your position? Because they have this point of view that the Quran was a book from heaven, right? So they don't really connect with the historical, archaeological, or something. When you bring up this issue about historical, archaeological point of view, and from your experience with the Muslim, is it effective method for us to discuss it with Muslims?
Well, to be honest, I don't speak with Muslims about such stuff because I don't want a lot of arguing. And this method is effective, I think, only with people who are smart. But the normal people, no, you have to use the old polemics, the old style, the way the Christians used to do it all the time. But if someone wants to use his brain and dig deep, then you can use the historical method.
They don't believe in historical, brother. Lots of Muslims, they like just we don't care about history.
They simply don't care.
Yeah, they don't care about any history. So, for example, I mean, I always use the argument about Maryam, how Jesus in Quran and in Islam, they become the nephew of Moses and Aaron. So that's a very simple historical errors, but they still don't get it, you know. So they don't really care about this stuff. So I think you're right. This is only for intellectual Muslims.
Very few.
Yeah, very few Muslims. Ya, silakan Pak Kres.
Ini saya tertarik mendiskusikan yang disampaikan oleh Bu Sofi yang kita semua sudah tahu bahwa pemerintah Arab Saudi berencana membenahi tata bahasa di dalam Al-Quran. Ada berapa 2.500 tata bahasa yang mau dibetulkan. Tadi Pak Murad juga mengatakan dia tahu ada banyak kesalahan grammar tata bahasa Arab di dalam Al-Quran. Saya bertanya, bisa nggak Pak Murad memberikan 1 atau 2 bukti kesalahan tata bahasa dalam Quran, kesalahan grammar Arabik? Saya kepingin tahu seperti apa modelnya.
Okay, Sheikh Murad, can you show us the grammatical errors in the Quran right now? Can you show us which one? Just maybe 1 or 2 examples.
Well, I don't remember which verse. I could tell you right off my head, but without where the verse, or do you want the verse?
Okay, just right out of your head. That's good.
Saya ingatnya aja enggak apa-apa. Nanti kita akan carikan ayatnya.
Well, one time it says that innal ladhina amanu was-sabi'un. So, for example, you have to say al-sabi'in, not al-sabi'un, because when the word inna is inside the sentence, then the other word has to be sabi'in. So this is, of course, a big mistake. If you do this in school, then the teacher will write it as wrong. And there are a lot of more errors like this. So this is just one.
Okay. What about Bism and Bism? Is that also grammatical errors?
The what?
Bism. Bismillah, biism,
Bu
and
Sofi tolong diterjemahkan dulu baru kita diskusi lagi supaya
Oh iya,
penonton bisa
tadi bahasa
mengikuti.
Arabnya aku nggak tahu Pak Gracia. Coba Pak, ina apa tadi Pak?
Yes, you mean Bismillah?
Ya enggak, the first one. What do you say
Yes.
in Arabic again?
In Arabic today, this is a mistake.
Ya,
In
ya, ya.
Arabic today,
Bismillah.
I can write it. I can
Bismillah
write
ini
it in the
kata yang
chat.
For
salah.
example,
I can write in the chat.
Oke.
Today
You
is
can
written bis. It should be is.
We don't
So
see your screen, brother.
I typed in the chat.
Oh, you type in the chat. Okay.
So you see the word bism. If you read it in Aramaic, it is correct. But if you read it today in Arabic, the way it is written today, it is wrong. It should be bi'ism. So there is an alif missing today.
So I wonder when an Arab person they recited Quran and they know there is a grammatical errors there. Why don't they like they changed it or they do Arab people realize there is a grammatical errors in the Quran?
No, they don't realize because they read it as a holy text, so they don't think about it. And of course, they will not change it because if they change it, it means that the Quran has mistakes. And the other thing, if you tell him, what is this? He will tell you, well, this is classic Arabic. This is very classic. This is the old days and the good stuff. And so there is no logical answer to this.
Yeah.
Okay. Ya, ada lagi Pak Gracia?
enggak, itu aja. Saya cuma kepingin tahu yang tadi dia bilang apa, tolong dia ulangi kalimat yang akhirnya sabiin apa, yang tadi itu tolong diulang supaya kita tahu bahwa yang pengucapan yang benar dalam bahasa Arab yang lazim, yang wajar itu apa, dan kekeliruan gramatikal yang tadi dia contohkan itu tolong diulang lagi, Bu.
Yeah. Can you mention once again about the sabiin and the sabiun? Which one is the grammatical error there?
The word sabi'un is wrong. I can write it here.
Ya kata sabiun ini salah ya teman-teman, harusnya sabiin. Jadi Murad tadi mengatakan ini kalau di sekolah nulisnya begini, ini dicoret sama gurunya katanya. Ini gramatikal yang salah gitu. Tapi saya tanya kenapa orang Arab nggak sadar ya? Karena mereka mengatakan oh ini Arab klasik, kamu nggak tahu ini kan bahasa Arab kuno kayak gitu. Jadi mereka membacanya secara utuh dan mereka nggak tahu. Kata biisem tadi juga biisem. Jadi kalau dalam bahasa Aramaik sebenarnya nggak salah, tapi kalau dalam bahasa Arab jadi salah. Jadi harusnya biisem. Ya tadi. Jadi Quran kemungkinan sih sebenarnya ditulis dalam bahasa Aramaik ya, itu kita memerlukan penelitian lebih lanjut lagi.
I wrote in the chat, sabi'un is wrong, sabi'in is right.
So shabi'in. There's a question from public. Where do the word Quran came from, and what is the meaning of that word?
Okay, in Arabic, if you ask any Muslim, he will not know the answer. He will say, well, maybe it means something that you read. But it is an Aramaic word. It's qiryana. And it is a text that you read in church. And this is what Christoph Luxemburg said. You know, in church, you can have not the Bible, but something small that you read. Maybe it has some psalms or something.
Yeah, lectionary, we call it.
Lectionary, yes, exactly, lectionary. This is what it means.
Jadi kata Quran itu sebenarnya dari bahasa Aramaik Kiryana ya. Jadi kalau di gereja itu ketika mereka liturgi mereka kasih bacaan yang kecil, cuma dari ya 1 pasal atau 2 pasal aja, itu namanya lectionary kalau di kita. Tapi dalam bahasa Aramaiknya Kiryana. Jadi Quran gitu.
Jadi pada basicnya kata Quran itu sendiri mereka tidak tahu artinya ya.
Ya, bukan bahasa Arab ternyata, Bu.
Oke,
Ya, Kiryana.
diperjelas untuk audiens. Quran sendiri itu orang Arab sendiri tidak tahu apa artinya, apa arti dari Quran tersebut. Karena asli dari Quran adalah Kiriana itu dalam Aramaik. Aramaik. Dan apa artinya Quran tersebut mereka juga tidak mengerti.
Ada yang mengatakan Quran itu bacaan. Jadi sesuatu yang dibaca, bacaan.
Ya, bacaan kan bisa majalah ya Pak ya.
Bisa novel juga.
Ya,
Zaman tahun abad ke-7 ya nggak ada novel lah Bu.
Ya, apa aja bisa dibaca lah.
Ya suka-suka mereka lah.
Okay, Brother Murad, is there anything you want to add?
It's very clear. It's really clear. I appreciate you, Murad.
Well, we could take just one last question, and maybe we can do it again in the future.
Oke, pertanyaan terakhir. Silakan, ada yang mau tanya terakhir? Last chance.
There is a question in the chat, which is which one is correct? Allah or Allah? It's probably like Allah or Allah.
No, the second one is more original because
Allah.
No, Allah right
Allah.
away.
Okay.
Because the second one is it's a new diacritical marks that was not there.
So you are an Arab. You call him Allah or Allah?
Well, today we say Allah. We say it this way today. But this doesn't mean it's right. The original was Allah right away.
Allah.
Yang O itu cenderung dialek Yaman atau dialek Arab Saudi yang vokalnya cenderung O.
Kita dialek Jawa, Pak. Allah, Pak.
Allah.
Allah.
Ya, mungkin nanti kita bisa minta Pak Deki untuk tutup dalam doa ya.
Okay.
We almost close.
Okay,
thank you, Brother Murad. We have
Silakan,
appreciate your time.
Moderator.
Ya, silakan, Lefty.
Lefty sudah live ini, jadi saya gantikan. Okay, thank you, Brother Murad, for coming to our Zoom. We appreciate. Maybe next time you can come again and prepare your longer PPT maybe, so with other topics. So, but
yeah, I will prepare satay for you. I will prepare satay for you.
Okay.
Okay.
And please subscribe to Brother Murad new channel. So yes, he just open new channel and please subscribe. Oke, silakan Pak Deki tutup dalam doa.
Baik, mari kita berdoa. Tuhan, terima kasih untuk sesi yang sangat baik ini. Terima kasih untuk Murad yang meskipun belum percaya kepada Engkau, Tuhan pakai untuk mengajar kami. Pengetahuan-pengetahuan yang sangat bermanfaat untuk kami gunakan di dalam pekabaran Injil dan membawa Muslim untuk percaya kepada Tuhan. Terima kasih untuk semua pihak yang sudah menyediakan sesi ini, kerja keras, mempersiapkannya. Tuhan memberkati, menolong, dan terus memberi kami semangat berkobar-kobar untuk memberitakan Injil firman Tuhan. Terpujilah Engkau Tuhan, kami bersyukur di dalam nama Bapa, Anak, dan Roh Kudus. Amin.
Amin.
Amin. Yuk kita kasih aplaus dulu untuk Murad. Terima kasih. Thank you, Brother Murad. We appreciate
Brother Murad.
Recording stop.
Bless you, brother.
Ya, yang live
Thank you, Murad.
yang live